Hello my dear students and welcome once again to Zenith Academy Online. Today we are going to do a very important topic, that is the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. So let's begin my dear children. So my dear students, the central nervous system, short form is CNS, includes the brain lying in the skull and the spinal cord contained within the vertebral column. So the central nervous system consists of two things, mainly brain and the spinal cord. Now let's talk about the brain. So in proportion to size, when I am talking about size of the body, the human brain is the largest among all animals. When we are talking about all the animals, the human brain is the largest of all. That is why we are the intelligent ones, right? So the brain is a very delicate organ and well protected inside the brain box, which is known as cranium of the skull. The adult brain weighs about 1.35 kilograms and constitute about 2% of the total body weight. Now it is 80% water and it consumes more than 25% of the oxygen that we take in. Now next we'll talk about coverings, that is meninges of the brain. Okay, meninges means covering of the brain, right? So brain is protected by three membranes, okay, three membranes, membranous covering called meninges, where meninges means membrane, which continue backwards on the spinal cord. So when you see this diagram, you can see there are three, okay, three meninges. Can you see? Dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. Can you see? This is dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. So dura mater continue backwards on the spinal cord. So when we are continuing backwards on the spinal cord, first is dura mater. So the outermost is dura mater. It is tough fibrous membrane, where dura means tough and mater means mother. Now why it is compared to a mother? The way mother is protective, in the same way mater here is mother. So a tough mother, a tough covering is known as dura mater. Now the second one is arachnoid. So arachnoid is a thin, delicate. Dura mater was tough. Arachnoid is thin, delicate middle layer giving a web-like cushion. Okay. Now arachne means spider. Since it is a web-like cushion, so the word arachne, right? Now the last one, that is the pia mater, which is closest to the brain. It is the innermost highly vascular membrane, richly supplied with blood, where pia means tender, correct? So the outermost, that is this dura mater, the outermost was tough fibrous membrane, okay, and dura is tough, mater is mother. The second one is arachnoid. It is web-like, right? That is why spider. The thin, delicate middle layer giving a web-like cushion is known as arachnoid. And pia mater, the innermost, it is highly vascular membrane. It is highly vascular because it has to have vascular bundles, right? So highly vascular membrane richly supplied with blood, okay, where pia is tender. So now what is meningitis? Meningitis is the inflammation. Whenever there is a swelling or inflammation of the meninges, of any of the layers, then meningitis is caused. So can you see here these three layers, arachnoid, pia, everything, can you see? So here if there is some bacteria, you can see some bacterial infection, or maybe due to any infection, there is an inflammation here. Okay, whereas this side you see there is no inflammation. So this is the normal, and here whenever there is an inflammation in the coverings, then it is known as meningitis. Now what are the symptoms of meningitis? You get fever or neck pain or sleepiness, vomiting, joints pain, rash, headache, seizures or light sensitivity. When you are very sensitive to light, when there is a neck pain or shoulder pain, you must check for meningitis. Okay. Now the next topic is, between the layerings there is something, right? What it is? The space between the covering membranes is filled with a watery fluid. So there is a space between all the layers. So this space is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, cerebrospinal fluid, which act like a cushion to protect the brain from shocks. So this fluid protects the brain from shocks. The same fluid also fills the central spaces, that is ventricles of the brain and other central canal of the spinal cord. So when we'll read spinal cord, I'll explain you there. But here in the diagram, can you see this blue colored fluid? Here, can you see this blue color fluid? That is nothing but cerebrospinal fluid. Okay. Now that we know the coverings of the brain, now let's talk about the different parts of brain. Okay. So the brain has three main parts visible externally. The three main parts which we can see actually from outside, they are cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Okay. See, cerebrum is the bigger part, cerebrum is a smaller part, and this brain stem, this triangular part of a thing, is known as medulla oblongata. Let's talk about each of them in detail. So the first one is cerebrum. Okay, cerebrum, the word cerebrum itself means brain. Okay, but it is a part of brain, it is a big chunk of brain, major part of the brain. That is why we call it as cerebrum. You can see these four colored parts. This is nothing but a cerebrum. So now, do you see this cerebrum is divided into two parts? Okay, so the cerebrum is the largest portion of the brain. First of all, you should know that. Then it is divided into two, the right and the left halves. Now they are called cerebral hemispheres. What are they called? Cerebral hemispheres. And their outer surface is highly convoluted with ridges and grooves. So do you see here, this is highly convoluted. There are lots of grooves and ridges out here in this pink and blue part. You can see that each cerebral hemisphere is hollow internally. So internally it is hollow, and the walls have two regions. An outer region which is known as cortex and the inner portion known as medulla. Okay, so when you see this type of a section, okay, you can see here gray matter. Okay, this is the gray matter, the darker part. Right, the outer portion, that is cortex of the cerebrum, contains cell bodies of the neuron, and being gray in color is called the gray matter. Now this contains what? It contains cell bodies. This gray matter contains cell body. We have already done neurons in part 1, right, where I have shown you the cell body, the dendrites, okay, the axon. So the cell bodies lie here. Okay, and then the dendrite might be in the white matter, but in gray matter we have cell bodies. Okay, so let us revise. Each cerebral hemisphere is hollow. Okay, internally it is hollow, and the walls have two regions, outer, which is cortex, and inner, which is medulla. Now when we are talking about the outer one, the cortex, when we are talking about, it contains cell bodies of the neurons. So neuron का कौन सा हिस्सा? Cell bodies is there in the cortex, and being grey in color, this is also called as grey matter. Now it is this layer of grey matter which is folded to form the convolutions. So grey matter is the one which is folded. If you see the previous diagram, okay, see, grey matter is the one which is folded, not the white matter, right? So it is the layer of grey matter which is folded to form the convolutions. The folds are called gyri, G-Y-R-I. The folds are known as gyri, and the grooves are called sulci, okay, or sulci, okay, which means creases. So such a system increases the surface area to accommodate more nerve cells. So to make things very clear, I have given you here a diagram. So this one is known as gyri, and this one, okay, the creases is known as sulci or sulci, as they pronounce differently, right? So it is believed that the higher number of convolutions in the human brain is due to the larger number of brain nerve cells. So since in humans there are a lot of brain cells, So the higher number of convolutions is due to why there are a lot of convolutions, why there are so many convolutions, because we have higher number of nerve cells and hence we have greater intelligence than other animals. Now, talking about the grey and white matter now. So the inner portion of the cerebrum consists of the white matter which mainly contains the axon, that is nerve fibers of the neuron. So please remember the grey matter. Okay, now here I have taken two diagrams. Don't see this. This is for spinal cord. Okay, this is for spinal cord. This is for brain. Okay, so here the grey matter contains what? They contain cell body, and the white matter contains what? It contains the nerve fibers. So it contains the axon, long part of it. Okay, so cell body is in the grey matter and in the white matter it has these axons. Okay. Now, in the case of spinal cord, when we will study spinal cord, we will see that grey matter is inside and white matter is outside. I have given you this diagram so that you understand very well that in case of brain, the grey matter is outside, the convolutions in the grey matter, the cell body is in the grey matter, that is why it is grey in color. White part, white matter does not have convolutions, it contains mainly nerve fibers, that are the axons. Whereas this is reverse in case of a spinal cord. Now, corpus callosum. What is corpus callosum? Can you see here? This color, I have shown it with a different color. This is corpus callosum. So, this is a hard body. It's a sheet of fibers connecting the two cerebral hemispheres. Okay. So, I showed you in that diagram, circulating diagram, there are two cerebral hemisphere. उन दोनों को connect कौन करता है? Corpus callosum. It connects the two cerebral hemispheres. Its function is to transfer information from hemisphere to the other. From one hemisphere to other hemisphere, it transfers the information. Okay. So it is basically the bridge between the right brain and the left brain. Now coming to major functions of our cerebrum. So cerebrum is the seat of intelligence, consciousness and willpower. This is the most important function of cerebrum. Okay, it controls all the voluntary actions, the actions that we do intentionally, like picking up this pen and writing, picking up a spoon to eat food. All those are voluntary actions. And the highly developed cortex, that is the grey matter, enables us to think, to reason out, to invent, plan and to memorize things. Okay, children. So these are the three major functions of our cerebrum. Now, here are listed some of the functions of different lobes of our cerebrum. So, see, movement and motor control. So, can you see these two parts? Okay. So, this part is for movement of our hands, legs, ribs. Okay. So, motor control, our fingers, and this part, okay, is the touch. Okay, a touch sensation, when we get a sensation, when we touch something. Okay, when there is a pressure. So it is for touch, this is for movement. Now here this part is for concentration, planning and problem solving. Then for speech is also a part of cerebrum. Then smell, this is the part where smell is there. Then facial recognition, this part of the brain is one which tells us okay, I have seen this face, so that's her name, right? So facial recognition. Then vision, when you see things, hearing and taste, right? Now cerebellum or medulla oblongata's function I will tell you later on when we study them. Now you all must be knowing something about the subconscious mind, the much talked about subconscious mind, right? So we say things like think positively, okay, give good vibrations, say good things so that your subconscious mind records it. And you also say that if whatever you want to learn, if it goes into the subconscious mind, then you learn it for a longer period of time, isn't it? So let us talk about what is subconscious mind. So what is generally called the subconscious or the unconscious mind is also located in the cerebrum. Okay. So many past experiences are covered up by more recent impressions which dominate conscious activity. So what happens is, in the past we had certain interactions with someone, or we had read some book, or suppose last to last year we had read something, right? But now we keep on reading new things, new topics keep on coming, so they keep on piling up on our memory, right? It is like the older one gets suppressed and the new one keeps on piling on them, right? So the past experiences are covered up by more recent impressions which dominate the conscious activity. So consciously हम कौन सी चीज़ें करते हैं जो हमने अभी अभी experience किए, right? So we forget, we keep on forgetting the past, right? So in dreams or when hypnotized and skillfully questioned, so in our dreams we see certain things, okay? And when someone hypnotizes you, or when skillfully someone asks you the questions, okay, then the past experiences may be recalled. You must have heard that there are people who, you know, who can bring the past. पिछले जन्म का भी याद आ जाता है या बहुत पुरानी चीज़ें याद आ जाती है, right? Because it was lying there in our subconscious mind. So when evoked, it surfaces up, right? So not many questions will be asked from this portion, but just remember that this subconscious mind is also a part of cerebrum. That's it. Now let's talk about cerebellum. Cerebellum is the little brain. This is how it looks like. Okay, I have highlighted this part, cerebellum. So this was cerebrum, and this small one, or we call it as chota dimag, right? So the little brain is cerebellum. So the cerebellum is a much smaller area of the brain located just at the base and under the large cerebrum. It is located under the base. So it has no convolutions but has numerous furrows. So if you see this diagram, there are no convolutions but there are furrows over here. So this also has an outer cortex made of grey matter. So in this also the outer cortex is made up of grey matter. Centrally it has white matter. So inside it has white matter, outside it has also grey matter. So centrally it has white matter which in a median section appears like a branching tree. It looks like a branching tree. So what are the main functions of cerebellum, the little brain? It maintains the balance of the body and it coordinates the muscular activities. These are very two important things. Maintaining balance is the little brain, the cerebellum. And it also coordinates the muscular activity. Now you will tell me कि मैम पहले वाले में भी muscular activity था, यहाँ पे भी है, but here it is coordination of muscular activity. I'll take an example to explain this to you. Right now, as of now, you remember the two functions are to maintain balance of the body and to coordinate muscular activity. Now this is the example. The impulse for performing a muscular act originates in the cerebrum. So, your cerebrum tells you that now you have to start this muscular activity. Suppose you see a dog, the dog is running behind you. So, that's a stimulus. So, which part of the brain will tell you to run? Okay, the cerebrum part will initiate this. So, the impulse for performing a muscular act originates, कहाँ पे originate होता है? In the cerebrum and not in the cerebellum. For example, if you stand up and walk, the impulse for this activity arises in the cerebrum conscious part. Now, but the act of walking, when you start walking or when you start running, okay, it involves coordinate working of many muscles, right? So now the proper coordination and timing of their contraction and relaxation is the responsibility of cerebellum. So cerebrum has given the impulse that okay, the dog is coming, run. Okay, now the cerebellum gets this instruction and it will coordinate the muscles of your legs. Some muscles will contract, some muscles will expand, and that is how you will make the motion, right? So this part, the coordination part of all the muscles and the bones is being taken care by cerebellum, but the impulse that was given from the stimulus originates in the cerebrum. I hope now it is clear to you guys. Now that is why you see that an alcoholic person when drunk generally walks clumsily, right? So the cerebellum, due to the effect of alcohol, is unable to coordinate the muscular movements properly, and we know the cerebellum has to be in a proper working condition for balancing as well, right? Now let's talk about medulla oblongata. You can see this green colored, I have highlighted this so that you are able to see it. It is slightly triangular in shape, okay? So the medulla oblongata is the lowest portion of the brain located at the base of the skull. So it is located at the base of the skull, you just now saw, okay? So this is it, a slightly triangular type of a thing. So it is roughly triangular and is continued behind as the spinal cord. It is continued behind, then उसके पीछे चलता रहता है, directly spinal cord आ जाता है. Now, its function is to control the activities of internal organs. Okay, what it does? It controls the activities of the internal organs. For example, peristaltic movement. So, when you eat some food, okay, the peristaltic movement like this, bowel movement starts in the alimentary canal. That is because of medulla oblongata. Movement of breathing, beating of the heart. This is not meeting, this is a misspelling. Beating of the heart and many other actions. Also, injury to medulla generally results in death. So, always you have to protect this part of your head. That is why they tell you to wear helmets which are covering your full brain. Okay. So, this part you have to protect a lot because here medulla oblongata is there, and even a minor injury of medulla oblongata can lead to your death. Now, since we have done the parts of the brain, now let's talk about the regions of the brain. So, many students get confused कि parts of the brain or region of the brain में क्या difference है, right? So, region of the brain is forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So, this region, forebrain, contains the cerebrum and some other parts. Okay, midbrain also contains some parts and hindbrain also. So let's talk about, so these are the different regions, आगे का, पीछे का और बीच का, right? Now see here, the forebrain, can you see the forebrain contains cerebrum? It also contains hypothalamus and pituitary gland, this part, okay? Now similarly, the hindbrain will contain cerebellum and brainstem, that is medulla oblongata. These two parts it will contain. So when we go ahead, I will tell you in detail. Let's talk about forebrain right now. So if you see here, forebrain contains your cerebrum, the bigger part, and diencephalon, which is thalamus and hypothalamus. Can you see here? Okay. So forebrain contains cerebrum and diencephalon. So cerebrum is the cerebral hemisphere, which is a seat of intelligence, memory, consciousness, willpower, voluntary actions. We have already done cerebrum. Now what is this? So it contains two parts, thalamus and hypothalamus. Can you see here? See, this is thalamus, this is hypothalamus, right? So this is thalamus and hypothalamus known as diencephalon. So thalamus releases pain and pressure impulses to cerebrum. So cerebrum को ये pain है कहीं पे या pressure आ रहा है तो उसका impulse कौन भेजता है? Thalamus. Similarly, hypothalamus controls the body temperature and also the secretions of the pituitary gland. Okay. So forebrain contains cerebrum as well as this. Okay. Many students are confused. They say forebrain matlab cerebrum. No. Forebrain means these two. Okay. Now the hindbrain. Okay. Now hindbrain contains cerebellum, pons and medulla oblongata. These three things it contains. Okay. तो बहुत से लोग बोलते हैं कि hindbrain मतलब medulla oblongata. No. Hindbrain contains these three. Cerebellum. Cerebellum we have already done. It coordinates muscular activity and the balance of the body, right? Now what is pons? Can you see here this diagram? Can you see this labeling? Okay. So it is located in the center of the brain below the cerebellum. It carries impulses from one hemisphere of the cerebellum to the other hemisphere, and it also coordinates muscular movements on both the sides of the body, right and left, right? Medulla oblongata controls the activities of internal organs. We have already done heartbeat, breathing, etc. Let's go ahead. Now, talking about spinal cord. We have done everything about the brain, the structure, the layers of the brain, the three parts of the brain, right? The regions of the brain. Now we will talk about spinal cord. So the spinal cord extends from the middle of the brain. Can you see? It extends from the middle of the brain till the second lumbar. Can you see? L2. So which is around our hips. Can you see? L2 is here around our hips. So the spinal cord extends from the middle of the brain down almost the whole length of the backbone to end at the second lumbar vertebra and lies within the neural canal of the vertebrae. So within the neural canal of the vertebrae it lies. Okay, so from where to where the spinal cord extends? From the middle of the brain. It runs down almost the whole length of the backbone at the end of the second lumbar vertebrae and lies within the neural canal of the vertebrae. So now let's talk about the internal structure of the spinal cord. So this is the cross section of the spinal cord. When you cut it like this, if this is the spinal cord, when you cut it like this is how you will see it. Now remember, this is inverse. Gray is inside and white is outside, right? And can you see a hole here? This is the central canal. So let me read this. So children, here I already told you the arrangement of white and gray matter is reversed, right, from that of brain. So the gray matter containing the cell bodies of motor and the association neuron lies on the inner side, right? So inner side, what lies now here? The cell bodies. The cell bodies of motor. Okay, motor now means the one which is carrying the information from the effector, जहाँ पे उसको जैसे stimulus है गरम चीज, right? So when your finger touches a hot object, okay? Now from here, from the effector, which neurons are taking the message to the brain? The motor. So the cell bodies of the motor efferent and the association neurons lie on the inner side, right? So motor or association, they both lie on the inner side, and the white matter on the outer side. White matter lies on the outer side. Now the white matter contains axon, right? We have done that in brain as well. The white matter contains axon running longitudinally to and from the brain and even crossing from one side to another. Now there is a small central canal. Can you see here? This is a central canal. Okay, this is a central canal in the middle, which is hollow, which runs down. Okay, so there is a small central canal in the center which runs the entire length and is continuous with the cavities of the brain. मतलब पूरा hole है, full cavities है. It continues from the cavities of a brain till the spinal cord. It is also filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So in this cavity also cerebrospinal fluid is there, which also acts as a shock-proof cushion and forms a medium for the exchange of food material, waste products and for respiratory gases with the neurons. So it is in the cerebrospinal fluid of the spinal cord that there is an exchange of food, waste and gases with the neurons. I hope this is very clear. So there are two functions of cerebrospinal fluid in the spinal cord. One is it acts as a cushion, it acts as a shock-proof cushion. Second, it helps in the exchange, it forms a medium for the exchange of food materials, waste products and for respiratory gases with the neurons. Now meninges of the spinal cord, we have done the coverings of the brain. Now we are doing the coverings of the spinal cord. So see here also these are the same coverings. You can see outermost toughest is dura mater, then web-like arachnoid is in the middle and then pia mater which is the closest, right? So externally spinal cord is covered by the same three membranes, dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater in continuation with those of the brain. Now let's talk about the functions of the spinal cord. It looks after all the reflexes below the neck. So below the neck all the reflexes are acted upon by your spinal cord. It conducts sensory impulses from the skin and muscles to the brain. right? So any sensory impulse is there from the skin or from the muscles, it conducts it to the brain. It helps, it becomes a mediator, okay? Also, it conducts the motor responses from the brain to the muscles of the trunk and the limbs, right? So that was all for the central nervous system. Do not forget to watch our next video for peripheral nervous system. Support us by subscribing, sharing, liking and commenting below our video. I hope you enjoyed learning central nervous system with us. So follow us, subscribe us, tap on the bell icon so that you don't miss out any of the lectures. Bye-bye my dear students and keep the learning on.